Hello and welcome. This is Chart Request Live. We do this twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Stock Market TV. Joined as always by my esteemed co-host and friend, Patrick Dunwillow of the Chart Report.
Stevie, how we doing?
I got my Florida man gear on today because we are very proud Stanley Cup champions down here in Florida.
You do. I think you embrace the Florida lifestyle well. I like to see it.
I feel like it suited me. Yeah. You find your way in this world
You
over
sure
time.
do, and you have found yours.
Donovan, Crazy Taxi, Jonathan, Curtis, Mark, Megan, Magana, Josh, Vog, Dave. This is going to be a good one. And we're actually going to start in the chat today.
I like it.
Because Crazy Taxi is right. What is up with Bitcoin, Pat? People want to know.
Well, let's take a look. I really think, do you remember we were talking back when it first broke out in March? We were saying, is it really going to be this easy? We're all seeing the same thing. We all see the cycle. We've seen this thing play out a million times. Is it going to be like we all think? And whenever something seems obvious in the market, it's probably not going to work. And I think that's what this is. I think this is just shaking out the weak hands. I think it's bullish that it's still intact and it's still here where it is after 3, 4 months of this kind of sideways correction. And so I think frustration is just more what you can expect in the near term is just more frustration. And
So,
that just means probably sideways and a lot of choppiness, a lot of failed moves, both failed breakdowns and failed breakouts.
but in bull markets, aren't those in bull markets, aren't those the optimal environments to enter new longs in?
Yeah, I mean, if you can see it happening,
Right.
and if you have conviction, then absolutely, yeah.
So more time needed, I guess, is the takeaway here.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
But it's still completely intact, I think. I mean, it's not great from a short-term perspective, but in terms of like a long-term bull cycle, this thing's totally still intact. I mean, you see it here.
This is a great chart. This is Amazon, right? This was Google a couple months ago. This was Apple a couple weeks ago. It was Microsoft before that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Trading
mean,
like a Mag 7. I don't think you want to make the bet that this overhead supply comes in and is so strong that Bitcoin never gets through those prior cycle highs, right? And I think that the best comps, like you're selling your house, right? You want to know what your neighbor's house sold for. The best comps for Bitcoin are the Mag 7.
I think, yeah, and I think, you don't hear too many people comparing it to that, but I think the way you're thinking about Bitcoin is just another Mag 7 stock is probably the right way to do it, right? I mean, we've seen the Mag 7 kind of take turns where, one week it'll
Right.
be Apple leading, the other week it'll be Nvidia, the other week, who knows, maybe it's Google. So they kind
It's
of
like its
take
own
turns.
sector. It's like
Yeah,
its own sector. You
right.
do
I mean,
rotation inside the Mag 7.
absolutely, yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up too, because they'll see Nvidia looking toppy or extended, and they'll say, "Oh man, the market can't go up without Nvidia." Well, what
Right.
if Apple all of a sudden gets it together and starts working, or any of the other seven or eight, or you have some that aren't even in the Mag 7, like a Broadcom, that all of a sudden jumps in there.
At
Um,
this point, though, the sector spider, since they just put a 20% allocation on NVIDIA, they might have trouble going up if NVIDIA is not going up. You
for what, the tech sector?
heard about that?
What, like XLK has a
Yeah,
20%?
the Spider Tech reweighting. They took it from 20% Apple, 5% NVIDIA. Basically, it's flipping to more or less 20% NVIDIA, 5% Apple.
Interesting.
It is interesting because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So now
Huh.
we'll take the mailbag. Actually, no, Pat, let's stay on this. Let's just finish the crypto conversation.
Sure.
Let's look at Solana.
Sure.
I like how you have that drawn.
That's the level, right?
Yep.
What is that 120 level?
That was the tactical top from the last cycle that led to a new structural downtrend, right?
And is this a top? That's the big question, right? Is this going to be a top?
Go ahead and pop a VWAP on that December high too.
Top a wop?
Spaces was fun today, huh?
Oh, yeah, it was. Wait, you said the December high, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Coming in right where we are.
And then zoom out a little bit, right? Because, yeah, right. So the primary trend is undeniably higher. So what looks to be a top or a reversal pattern could very well be a continuation pattern.
Yeah, and it's finding support here. I mean, I think you said it best yesterday. If this isn't a top, then Bitcoin probably isn't a top either. Am I getting that correctly? Am I butchering what you said?
If it's not a top in Solana, it won't be a top in Bitcoin. I feel that strongly. I think Solana, Binance, Ethereum, Bitcoin, that's like the extended Mag 7 in the world of crypto, right? They're not going to move in different directions.
Yeah.
And then Pat, hit up the Bitcoin miners quick, like something like Hut.
Well, this
Yeah,
is the GMI here. What do you think of the ETF overall?
well, because so this is simply earlier this year now flipped on its head because we came into this year and it was Bitcoin's rallying. Why are the Bitcoin miners who are so leveraged to the price of spot Bitcoin, why are they not rallying, right? Because they were dead sideways all this year. And you could see that with this little triangle here,
Yeah.
Q1 of 2024, right? Why are the Bitcoin miners not doing well in an environment where Bitcoin is doing well? It's the same thing as saying, why are gold miners not trending higher? Spot gold is really working right now.
Which was the question that everyone was asking not too long. But
So
yeah.
now we have dead Bitcoin, sideways Bitcoin, and these guys are ripping. That's the catch-up trade. And I think Louis did a great job writing about this for our crypto clients at All Star Charts. Like there was a huge potential catch-up trade here. And if you bet on it, honestly, betting on it through the WAGMI using the index was actually a pretty good vehicle because it's not easy to pick winners and losers in the Bitcoin mining space. There's some really good ones. Look at Hut, look at Wolf, look at Iran. And then there's some nasty ones. Look at Riot and Mara just lagging, right? So Hut, I think, completing a little bit of a tactical base here. Yeah, and then look at Riot.
Is Mara just, oh my gosh. Yeah, this is almost worse than a breakdown. Just months of sideways like that. That's tough.
Opportunity
messy, yeah, messy year, really. I mean, all year it's just been.
It would be terrible unless you were selling puts. So Ivan in the mailbag, Kupang.
Kupang.
Shout out Korea, shout out Southeast Asia, shout out online retail. I like this group a lot. I'm heavy in the Jumaya right now.
You do like the Jumaya.
I love the Jumaya, but like Pat, this is clean, right? This is clean. And we draw things like Pat's about to draw a non-top pattern.
I'm just drawing some support here. So it looks like it broke out of this range here. So that's important thing. Looks like it broke out in April, so not too long ago.
But that big range that you just drew is also a key level on a more tactical time frame.
But you're talking about this, right? You're talking about, is this a top? Because it broke out, but then here we are rolling over. I think this is just a classic retest. And so far, buyers are showing up where they have to. Looks like it didn't quite fill the gap completely, but it wicked in there. Maybe it'll shake out a little and, just dip in here, fill the gap, and then move on out. But I think, this is behaving well. I think it's long above 20, right?
Most patterns, pretty much every pattern in the discipline of technical analysis is a sideways pattern. If it's a pattern, it's sideways. And the reason we call it a pattern is because we're trying to figure out a directional bias coming out of that pattern, right? So we don't have any tactical trend help when we're looking at a pattern because a pattern, by definition, is a consolidation. It's sideways, right? Whether it's a triangle, a pennant, a flag, sideways. What we do have as help to determine the way that we come out of that pattern is the trend coming into that pattern. So the trend, or even in this case, the pattern coming into this little tactical top pattern was a massive bearish to bullish reversal, primary trend reversal pattern. And we're sitting at the upper bounds of that pattern, printing a tactical top, which you have to look at and say, is that top going to be a true tactical reversal signal or a tactical continuation signal? And when you can zoom out on a chart like this and say, well, we're coming out of this beautiful rounded bottom, you would have to say it's very likely to not be a bearish technical pattern on top of that. It's likely to be a bullish continuation pattern, which means a failed top in the case of this little coupon, 2-month range?
Yeah, I mean, you said that well, and it kind of reminds me of something our friend Frank Capillary, great technician, always says is that, in bull markets or in uptrends, bearish patterns should fail. And in in bear markets or downtrends, bullish patterns should fail.
Yeah.
So here we have a bearish pattern. And what you're saying is that we're in the midst of a long-term trend reversal. You got the downtrend line break in 2022. You got this multi-year period of basing, and here we are trying to form an uptrend. And if it is a true uptrend, and this is a new uptrend, you should see bearish patterns starting to fail. So you really do want to see this top to not act like a top here and dig in here. That would be very, very constructive from a longer term perspective if you are betting on that reversal.
If this is not
does that make any sense?
Yes, I think that was great, Pat. And if this is not a top and we dig in at this 21 level, I think this one has so much further to go. I don't think we're talking about 100%. I think we're talking about 3-4x.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the same with Jumaya and the same with C Limited. These online retail companies are some of the best growth stories in the entire worldwide stock market, right? This is the Amazon of an emerging country, right? So that's a big consumer story.
What country are they in?
What
country are they in? Is this China or?
Primarily Korea, but they have plans to be more of a Southeast Asia brand. Next up, Mark, looking at a long,
Above 20, I don't think I gave a price there. 30, 31 looks like your target if it's above that. Even 1950 you could use as a out point, but yeah.
Mark, looking at a long entry on GE above 165, I'm targeting 200, the 2000 to 2008 highs, and then 230 above that. The base breakout is holding above the 2017 highs. It sure is. And we got a big looking hammer stick on the monthly printing. And it could look a lot better this time next week.
So I missed some of those levels. We might have to read them back again, but this thing's working. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
what a
Pat,
comeback story.
They're the levels you're about to draw. So he's saying if we're above 165, more or less, what should I do? He's saying first stop 200, and then 230 above that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think he's seeing it correctly. I mean, 200 comes in right at those, 2007 highs? Yeah. 2007 highs was also resistance back here in December. Now, keep in mind, this is a monthly chart, so this is really long-term here, but we have to zoom all the way out for something like this.
But also keep in mind, right, we always say, like we were just talking about on Spaces, where did we come from?
Yeah.
Do you worry about that for a chart like this? Like, where did we come from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, zoom out.
Ridiculous here. Wow.
So
Is this the highest RSI reading ever? Yeah.
So GE was the largest company in the world. In the world. Back in the 90s, the last time momentum on a monthly basis was this high. It was the biggest company in the world. So we just printed a higher monthly RSI 14 reading than back then.
That's an excellent point.
You get what I'm saying? Like this stock has done a lot. It's performed incredibly well.
I think
Asking for too much.
given that this is kind of the first move of the reversal, though, I think
It is. I know.
it could kind of carry for longer, I think.
I
I
agree.
completely see what you're saying, and I think you're asking the right question here. But bottom line is if it's above this 150 line, you got to be bullish. And you're looking at, as the person who asked the question said, 200.
Yeah.
200 is obviously a logical point from a psychological perspective, being a nice round number, but also those 2007 highs, 2001, 2002 highs.
And that's a cool trade. Like you'll pick up 25% on that. Does it happen as quickly as it's happened 25% in the past over the past 2 years? Probably not. But you don't bet against trends like this, right?
Right.
But GE came out of the absolute dumps. Like sentiment was perfect. It was like, oh, this is the death of GE. The industrial conglomerate that helped build America is going to go away forever. And then they're like, no, we're back. And now it's again the largest industrial company in the world, larger than Caterpillar and Honeywell and any of its peers. But, but I can't help but look at this chart and say, I would have much rather been buying this at 65,
Yeah,
right? And I already caught a double up
for
to
sure.
the highs,
But
right?
you see what I mean? Like where because this is happening from a point of capitulation, I'm gonna say that it probably could continue for a
Yes,
while.
I
If it
think
was
that's a great
coming
point.
from, yeah, if it was coming from just like a range bound move or breakout, maybe
This is
not.
coming. This is coming from a special sentiment situation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I like that thinking. Jonathan, I am looking at Coherent Corporation, ticker symbol COHR, on a weekly. Yeah, so flip it to a weekly.
Okay. Monthly still.
It's secular.
Yeah.
Looks like a buy right here at 73 and three quarters, big base, retest of the high, and eventual breakout. What are your thoughts?
I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure he's looking at this level right here, right?
yeah.
75. So it's testing it. And I mean, it's already built this really nice base here. I think it does it this time. It's tested that level so many times that you got to imagine it's pretty weak now.
Here's
Looks ready. Looks like all-time highs around 100 are next.
a chart like this actually appears more range bound than it is. Bulls are in control of every trend. They're in control of the primary and the structural, right? Zoom out a little more, Pat,
Right.
and show that well. They're also in control of the intermediate and tactical. And I'm comfortable saying that because I know Patrick could litter this chart with anchored VWAPs, and price is going to be above every single one of them. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Try
I
and
mean,
drop VWAP. That price is not
if
above.
if it's above the VWAP from the all-time high, there's really nothing else
Well
to
above. Yeah,
check, right?
that's it.
This is a great one. Looks like I said, hundreds next. Nice round number. If you can get that, that's when the party starts though, because then you've completed this 4-year base. If it gets up to 100, I don't think I'd be a seller there yet. I mean, obviously, a lot of the times you get a little bit of you could get a correction, or when things return to those former levels. We'll see then, but at that point, it would have formed a really nice base, and it could be just getting started then.
I like this setup a lot. This is all green lights from me. Hit us with a ratio chart quick, just to show
yeah.
that here.
Against the S&P, or
Yeah. Zoom out.
also at like a very important level there. Let's
Zoom out.
to a line.
Not as good as I would have thought, but you got a massive, decade and a half long range here. Going on almost 20-year range.
Yeah. And it looks like it's kind of already broken out against SPY. Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, that's nice. You
Playing
can
it
draw
back
the
100.
primary trend reversal on both absolute and relative terms.
Yeah. And you've already gotten the breakout on the relative, not so much on the absolute, but that's kind of what you
Listen, make this next one quick. We've talked a lot about this one, and I have a feeling we're going to talk more about it in the future. This is that Brazilian, they call it a fintech, but it's really a bank. New. New holdings, NU, 6 months to a year. There's not much to say about this, right?
I think it looks great. What do you think?
Yeah. When it goes, you got to be on board.
Exactly, yeah.
We're at overhead supply.
But I
Big,
do like this little consolidation. Like, we talk about how when things do get back to those all-time highs, a lot of the times you see this digestion period once it finally reaches those highs.
right.
Uh, like Hims is going through that right now.
And
And
I will say too, Pat, if you can just flip back, something else that we see at these, like you're talking about, this is a critical polarity zone, right? You
right.
want to flip it to the daily, you start to see strange things and heightened volatility on shorter time frames before a resolution. These last two candles stick out to me.
Yeah.
Last two candles really stand out. This is resolution type price action. I don't know what direction, but you saw that giant range from yesterday, right? With the big red body, and now they're coming in, they're trying to flip it. The market is trying to figure out which way we're going here.
Right, right. It's a battle. You're at that kind
Yeah.
of stalemate, right?
So we're close, and you can see the heightened volume. Like, look at the volume from yesterday, the highest volume since probably Q1 of this year. So it looks like this one's trying to figure out its next direction. And I have a feeling it is a bull market. I think we err that way.
Yeah, it's like even the worst stocks, they try as long as they can to not break out, but then eventually they have to go.
Yep. And they'll confuse you before they do, and they'll show these big indecision candles with, these long wicks. And you can even see it on the weekly, Pat. Look at that weekly. Like it
Yeah.
poked its head out and then it shook back down to new weekly lows.
And look at
now
all
it's
these
back.
dojis too, right? Like doji, what word do you think of when you hear doji? Indecision, right?
That's right. And
So,
and momentum too stands out in this chart. Like the weekly momentum trend. This is crazy.
would
This
you be
thing
worried about this divergence, or do you think gotta let it dance?
Oh, I'm not gonna. No. I wasn't looking at the divergence. I was actually looking at how it can't break 50.
Yeah, from a bullish
Yeah,
perspective.
like the corrective wave last fall couldn't break 50. That's
Yeah.
bullish. So this one looks great. Give us a target.
Oh, target. If it's above 12, uh, ignore that. 27 using a fib-based scale, but on this, I think you're looking at 17 first would be a more realistic target. But yeah, price 17, 18. Above 12 gets you 17, 18. Not bad at all.
Stock market Mike wants to see the dong.
DONG,
No, VND.
VND,
VND USD. So that's the dong. I think that's what
VN.
that.
What are you talking about?
No, flip it. Do USD VND.
Oh, okay.
You want to see the dong?
VND? Yeah.
I actually have the dong framed in my office.
Why are we looking at the dong? What's the significance here?
So this is a communist country, and that's why you see it ping to levels like this. They do peg currencies, emerging world, but I don't know why Mike asked for it. I think we flip it. I think we flip the conversation away from this communist currency to VNM.
VNM.
Van Echter's Vietnam. This is a risk asset, right? This is one of those groups that, like in a bull market, you expect to work. And we see frontier markets working. We see emerging markets, at least outside of China. So something like EMXC working, right? It's only a matter of time until countries like Vietnam get it together, build out these reversals, and start trending higher. I don't think this bull market ends until groups like Vietnam. And guess what? This is the same category as small caps. The bull market is not going to end until these offensive areas and these offensive indexes complete trend reversals and join the party.
Yeah.
Right? So when I look at the chart of small caps, I'm like, oh, that stinks. But I'm also like, this bull market has legs. Small caps haven't joined the party yet. And I think Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, look how similar the two look. Frontier
Yeah,
markets.
like a 25% weighting.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Frontier markets is Vietnam.
Yeah, and frontier markets almost looks like ARK. Not as bad, but Where what I mean by that is you get the downtrend and then this grueling range.
No, but what you mean by that too is like risk on, right? That's what I'm talking about. Offense,
Yeah. If it starts
Vietnam.
to work, yeah. Yeah.
This is the risk on stuff that I think it should be on everybody's radar. Set an alert when that trend reversal prints. You want to get into these guys. These are bull market vehicles, right? Where you get more juice or more beta during good times, but you probably don't want to own them come the next bear market. This is buy and sell, not a tuck away and hold forever, right? It's a vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next? So the chat is active, Pat. They have questions for you.
What do we got? Keep them coming.
PANW is a good one. I'm interested in these cyber names, whether it's, CyberArk or CrowdStrike or Zscaler. Palo Alto probably looks as good as any of them. Actually, I take that back. CrowdStrike looks by far the best. Palo Alto is the next best.
Yeah, so this one just needs to fill that gap, right? And that could, do you expect that to happen kind of quick or?
So we're above all the WAPs. I think you could draw a really clean and clear level. Yep, right there. No. I would keep it tight. I would we're entering that zone, and I think you'll probably see a bit of a price magnet back to the 360s.
Yeah. It just needs to go.
I think that earnings gap really fills, right? We've already filled more than half of it from 260 to here. And I think we fill the rest of it as soon as we take out those pivot highs. And then I think Palo Alto rejoins the group of tech leaders, right?
And this one is a cloud name?
No, this is cyber.
Cyber, okay.
So Biff Griebel says BTC will break out when people stop paying so much attention to it. Biff, I couldn't agree more. So
I was gonna say, I think they hit it on the head. Honestly,
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
Like
it kind of comes back to that Walter Deemer quote, like when the time comes to buy, you won't want to. Yeah. I mean, truer words have not been spoken. I mean, I remember you and I had this conversation when it was the low. Bitcoin was at like 15K, and you and I were saying, have you ever seen sentiment so bad? And at the same time, neither one of us were buying back then. I wish we were, but we knew what we should have done at the time, but we didn't do it because it's so hard in the moment to do that.
I was helping a reporter this weekend write an article, and he called me and said, how come it's always so obvious that you should buy weakness in hindsight, but it seems like no one ever does it? And he wrote an article about that. And I was like, that's fantastic. Like, more journalists should be thinking this way, right? Like, everybody knows. We could zoom out and look back and be like, oh, wow, so obvious, down 30%. That was a great time to buy. But nobody does it then.
Right.
When it's actually happening. And he was like on a quest to figure out like why that is. And I'm like, that's really fascinating. But this is what we deal with, right? And sentiment is really important. And the composite operators or the smart money in the market, they understand sentiment, Patrick, far better than you and I do, right? And they see that everybody is long Bitcoin right now, betting on a breakout, and they're going to make sure that breakout doesn't happen. So in moments like this, when you look at a chart setup and like the fractals were just so lined up across multiple time frames, like this chart looks so good any way you look at it, and they won't let it break out, right? Because it's never easy. It's never obvious. The market is designed to fool the majority of people the majority of the time.
Like, I think you and I were talking about it the other day. It's like this setup looks so textbook and so much, or maybe 3 months ago, it looked so textbook and so obvious if you studied the past cycles. That it was so obvious that I was like, are they really going to make it this easy? No. Probably not. They're going to make it so hard to hold on to this thing.
Especially at this point, Pat, how many times have we seen Bitcoin blast through its prior cycle highs? The market knows that.
Right.
We're all looking at this chart like, oh, it's going to do what it did every other time.
Exactly.
Maybe they print this top and then we get some sort of failed breaky, bear trappish thing and hook higher. But for now, I think you pay attention to that chart of Solana, which we already covered. So let's move on. Next in the chat, Jonathan, you're the man. EMN, is that Eastman Kodak or Eastman Chemical?
Eastman, yeah, Eastman Chemical.
I was joking about the Kodak. You
You
Koreans.
remember when that thing randomly started surging a few years ago?
Eastman Kodak was one of the first big tech stocks in the United States.
Really?
Mhm.
My grandfather worked for them.
And
Uh,
those cameras, like ask John Carlo and the boys, like still super in style.
oh yeah, I know there's like a whole collector's
Yeah,
market for these things.
it's like a thing for camera people. It's a collectible now, I think.
But man, I can't see too much to like about this chart. To me, this just says opportunity cost. And yeah, it could work. It could definitely work. It doesn't look
All right,
terrible, but
let me play devil's advocate. I see a primary trend reversal. I see a base here. It looks like it's resolved, and then I see a coil.
you see a coil.
I see a coil.
Where, to the right here?
Yeah, yeah, right here, all year since April.
I would call this a consolidation.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's just, I think there's probably if you really wanted to get involved here, buy a retest of this 90 level, a potential retest. Um, but just you see what I'm saying in terms of relative strength. It's just
This is it. This is why relative strength is so good, right? That chart, Pat, on an absolute basis, to me, looks like something we would buy. Then you
what
look at this and you say, no, that's crazy, right? We
yeah,
have charts that look good on absolute terms that are also showing leadership or outperforming their peers or producing alpha for our portfolios. This would not be one of them.
yeah. I mean, if it was just reclaiming that, I'd like to see that. If it was just reclaiming the former lows from 2022, but the fact that it can't even get above its bear market lows on a relative basis, that should tell you something. But I mean, if you are in this name and you're looking for a target or you're looking for some sort of risk level, to the downside, you got 90. And then to the upside, I think I'd be looking to play this back to all-time highs. As you've said with some of these others, we're in a bull market here. A company like Eastman Chemical should participate. It's probably not going to be your outperformer. It's probably not going to be it's not going to be able to keep up with the semis and things like that. But path of least resistance is probably higher here.
All right, Pat, we got a couple good ones. You're going to rip right through these.
What do we got?
Skipping that one. Yeah, so let's start with the bad and then get to the good. We'll start with Medtronic. This has been a disaster story. Medtronic is one of like
What
the
is
great
what's the ticker
healthcare
there?
companies. Mm-hmm.
What's the ticker for Medtronic?
MDT.
MDT, yeah.
I don't think you can. Well, see what you think. And
Oh man,
same way.
if I had to put my bull hat on, I mean, it's like the cruise ship that's trying to reverse, right? Slowly trying to get there. You got trend line break. It was super messy, but you still got it. And then you got the basing phase here, and it's working on it. I mean, anytime you have a basing phase, as constructive as it is, it's a frustrating period.
When I
Um,
when I started my career, there was Medtronic, and then there was everything else in medical devices. But it was like on an island by itself. And now there are Abbott Labs, Intuitive Surgical, Stryker, Boston Scientific, even Becton is getting close. Edwards Life Sciences is getting close. Never used to be that way. It was Medtronic was the Nvidia or the Apple in the space that was just far larger than everybody else, but they really lost their leadership position.
and medical devices have been especially weak within healthcare, right?
Hey, why don't you throw up the IHF quick?
IHI or
F. Oh,
IHF?
sorry. I've been looking at the healthcare plans a lot, and that's just like a political cycle thing. These stocks tend to become more volatile. I
So
mean, this is trouble.
this is medical devices relative to the S&P here. You can see, I mean, we're breaking down to 6-year lows, 7-year lows, something
I
like
would
that.
I would say, Pat, you could answer the Medtronics request using a top-down approach. This just isn't a group that we want to be in.
Yeah, yeah,
Medtronics is considered like a sector leader or an industry leader in medical devices. Well, then you have to ask yourself first, do I even want to own medical or do I even want to own medical devices?
right, right. Okay,
This,
if we reclaimed this, now we're talking, but uh,
yeah,
yeah, there's really nothing that gets me excited about this space. Within healthcare, I gotta say biotech. I know it's been a frustrating group, but
yeah.
biotech is finally getting its act together recently. So I'd be looking there for potential plays, but like you said, IHI, it's been a tough, or medical devices has just been a really tough space, and even the leader within the group, yeah, it's shaping up. I don't hate it. I would look to buy a breakout above 90. I would rather get involved once it proves to you that it can do that.
No,
Um, but if it's below it, really not much of a reason to get involved.
and you make a good point about the bios, right? Always ask yourself, okay, if this is a sector I want to get involved in, like Medtronics is a healthcare name, what are the strong areas of healthcare? And it really is the bios right now. Like throw up a chart of IBB and just show us why you're saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look at that. I mean, here, let's.
They want it. They're ready to go. They're ready to go.
They're ready to go, and we've thought that before. You remember,
We've thought it a couple times before.
right? This chart initially broke out in, I think, February, and we all got excited. Every technician out there was like, "Oh man, biotech's finally working," and of course it failed. But I think kind of going back to what we were talking about with Bitcoin, where it's not going to be that easy. If you think it's going to be that easy, and we're all expecting the same thing, it's not going to be that easy. It doesn't mean that it has to break down and completely fail, but you can get these frustrating 6-month periods where you just go nowhere.
No, you're nailing it, right? So we had this frustrating period in March. Circle the March.
Yes, the
Failed
breakout.
breakout. Everyone was talking about biotech. Everyone was watching the space. Everyone was calling for the reversal, right? Now we fast forward, not getting that
Well,
reversal.
we actually got a couple. We had it in December too, where we initially got, I think, the 2-year high, or
And
maybe
then
close enough.
and then you got a sweet flag off of the December high, and you're like, oh, this is definitely it in March. And the whole world and all of our technician friends were like, just like all of our technician friends over the past few weeks have been like, oh, Bitcoin, hell yeah. All of our technician friends back in March were like, BIOS, they're going. It's going to be the year of the biotechs, 2020.
Yep.
And then what happened? They failed miserably. And then we get to now, we're in late June, and no one's talking about these companies anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone's completely forgotten about biotechs or said, never again. Fail my breakout twice. I'm done with you guys. Now is when the breakout happens from a sentiment perspective.
Right. It's that's the quote of the day right there. When time comes to buy, you won't want to, because that's the case with this. Like, it should be hard to buy when you buy it. It should, it shouldn't be one of these things where you're chasing it or rushing to get in and you feel like you're missing out. Anytime you have that feeling of FOMO when you're about to enter a trade, ask yourself, do I really want this? Am I really missing out here? If I chase it up a few pennies or.
And for those of you that don't know, we have been blessed to learn from so many greats before us. Patrick is quoting the great Walter Deemer, who is also a Florida man.
He is. That's right. Walter, I mean, that guy, he's still so witty too. I mean, I know he's retired, but
Incredible. So good.
When I hear he's retired, it's like, okay, I know you're still watching that chart every single day.
Walter's one of a kind. We can't get him onto the morning show, sadly enough, because he's like, Steve, that's just too much tech for me. And I get that. I understand that. We'll never have Ralph for similar reasons, unfortunately, but we catch him on other mediums. Pat, we got two more, I think, that need to be covered.
Yeah.
Uber, and then you could take us out with Snap. And if there's time, we'll do the on, because I think that's a great request also. Where's your head at for the request of the day so far?
Ooh, request of the day, man. I think we have to keep going. I don't know if I see one standing out just
Had to
yet.
see nothing that stands out. He hates all of your guys'
I didn't
security.
mean it like
Did not
that.
impress him.
I think I'm jaded from the last time. Whoever brought that VITL setup, that was beautiful.
Also, I think it's fair that we should tell the people that you're like permanently jaded. Patrick has this complex where when he sees a breakout, he has the least trust for new highs
Yeah,
ever.
it's trust issues. Who knows what it is?
And
But
it's you're not wrong to do that, but like no one has ever trusted a breakout less than Patrick Tunnewilla.
I think I trust the ones that people get excited about. I don't trust those. I'm sorry. When I hear a bunch of people excited about a breakout, something
And
goes off where I say, oh,
and you
don't,
should do
don't be
that in your position, right? Because you're in a unique spot where you are extra knowledgeable or mindful about what other people are thinking and saying because of what you do every day.
correct.
Right?
Yep.
Do you know that well and you've kind of figured out some sort of like your own like sentiment dynamic where you're like, too many people are tweeting about this chart, that breakout ain't gonna work.
Yeah, or like the not the right person to fade because some people are very smart, but when you disagree with them, you're like, okay, you know,
Mhm.
th- you get that kind of gut feeling. But um, yeah, I'm not sitting there
That
fading.
has a naughty and
They'll
nice
make
list.
it.
That has a naughty and a nice list for TCR. He's got
Yeah,
people that he wants to jump in and ride the trend with, and then other people that he wants to fade, but you got to pay more for that list.
right, exactly. You can
But they
email
are
to the list. I'm just
no, but
kidding.
like JC talks about this a lot too, Pat, where he knows like this guy's calling me. Classic fade, right? Like you
Right, and
it's
it's
over
not
time.
something like, oh, this person's an idiot. It's
No,
like, well, they were bullish last time on this, and think about how hard that failed, or knowing the certain things. I'm sure you faded me on some things like that.
I know I doubt it, but
Anyway,
no, doesn't that feel mean to like fade your friends? I don't listen. The guys that we work closely with, yourself included, like I'm not fading Alfonso or Grant or Louis. Like we're never fading each
I,
other. We're mindful when we get off sides, and too many of us feel conviction about the same thing. I think we're all mindful, but we're lucky where everybody just kind of like does their own area. Like we got Louis on crypto, Ian's on the fixed stuff, we got Grant on the stats and the quant, and that way we're not overlapping too much, right? So it's like we kind of just go with the vibe from each area, and then it's more of a weighing exercise. It's like if breath is saying this, if cryptos are doing that, if commodities are doing this, the intermarket's saying that, right? And then it's like it's
yeah,
always a puzzle, and that's
always a puzzle. I was explaining that to someone the other day. I was like, what we do kind of feels like putting together a puzzle every day, and then it's like someone comes in overnight and just messes up the puzzle, and you
yeah.
got to figure it all out again the next day.
Jerome Powell comes and just kicks your
Yeah,
puzzle in your
nice
face.
puzzle. It'd be a shame if someone ruined it.
But that's what keeps us coming back, right? Like that's the hard part as you grow as an analyst. It's not about like being able to look at the chart and identify the trend or even being able to put together the intermarket puzzle. It's the big picture puzzle. It's okay, I have to take this breadth data point and this sentiment data point and then what the trend is telling me and what commodities are saying in the bond market, and then taking all of those different data points and saying, how do I weigh this one versus that one? What's more important? That's where things get complicated.
Yeah, I always feel like I have the best handle on the market like Sunday night, and
Yeah.
then everything just goes awry.
And then price moves and changes.
Right, right. Then the market opens.
All right.
Uh,
Listen,
anyway, we didn't even get to Uber.
are
So
you
this,
going to talk about Uber or not?
as long as it's above 60, it's a long, and I think you're looking towards 90 as your next price target. I love this one as a long-term play. You got the successful retest here. Bears tried to break it. They didn't. Like I said, the successful retest, that's information right there, that this thing's probably headed higher.
And
So
here's the thing about Uber that freaks me out. It's been too orderly. This stock has been too easy to trade. These
yeah,
these
this was
waves.
the breakout that I thought was going to fail. I mean, you talk about how I don't trust breakouts too often.
I'm glad you thought it was.
I thought this was going to fail, but it didn't.
I was selling so many puts when Uber was revisiting this prior cycle highs. My broker was calling me like every day, like, dude, you can't do that. My broker would call me like, you sold way too many puts, man. Like, I know. It's okay.
But I mean, something like this, I think you're doing the right thing with it. And
Yeah. No,
uh,
it's primary trend stuff. Next, on, and then snap, and we're done.
ooh, on. That's a tricky one.
Do you wear these?
These are the what are these? The Hoka?
Hoka, what's the other one?
They make a couple brands, don't they?
Isn't on one of them? The ones with the two circles?
I think you're right. Yeah.
They look comfy, but also they don't look like Nikes.
So holding 38 pretty
Hey,
nicely,
mute
but
yourself.
sounds good. If it's above this 38, 40 level, looks good. Playing it back to all-time highs around 56. But shaping up correctly, a little messy of a chart.
The average buyer is in control.
And on a shorter term basis, I would be watching this gap here from earnings in May.
I wouldn't want to own it below those pivot highs though from like last
Right.
summer.
I wouldn't even let it get there, but
36 and a half, right?
yeah. But should we leave it here, Steve?
The voice of God is telling us that there are other things that have to happen on this network uh, in the next 5 minutes. So I think we do. Guys, we didn't get to all of the ticker requests in the chat, but that's actually normal at this point. So join us again on Thursday and drop those requests in. I will get to them.
Moving
Pat,
down the charts.
My chart of the day, I really like Coupon. I think that's the right way to think. It's a failed short-term top. It's a longer-term trend reversal. We have a big level there. That's my request of the day.
I
Coupon
like
wins.
it.
So,
What was the one we were just looking at before this?
on.
Uber. Oh, I'm gonna have to stick with Uber.
It was great.
I
Absolutely.
know it's nothing. I'm not going out on a limb here, but sometimes you don't have to, right?
No, Pat, I'm with you. I had to try hard to not pick Uber. You know, that's been one of my favorite stocks. I think Coupon will be one of my favorite stocks in the future, though. Uber's great. I have a very large long-term position in that one.
I like it. I like it. All right, Steve. Till Thursday.
This has been fun, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Chart Request Live. In the meantime, before Thursday's show, join us every morning on Stock Market TV for the morning show, 8:30 Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Pat.
Thanks.